Okay, so today, it's been the longest time that I've been talking about my alchemical research on the Philosopher's Stone and metallic transmutations. I've documented a lot of the results of experiments and the different kinds of stones and projection powders I've created for this work of transmutation of metals, base metals into precious metals such as silver and gold. So today, I've never had a steady camera system or tripod or anything that was easy to work with to record the actual process of attempting to transmute metal and see what kind of results. I've never actually recorded the process from start to finish when it comes to casting the projection powder into the metals. However, I have documented pretty much everything else in regards to the experiments, from the production of the stone, how to make it in different densities and different states of matter that are more or less concentrated with a unique form of energy that can only be found in organic systems, that comes from cell salts that are expelled from living organisms. So here I have my favorite specimen of the Philosopher's Stone in a pearl-like form, which it took about 2.5 years to produce this red jewel. And I haven't weighed this one, but I want to use this one and keep it for keepsakes and make jewelry with it. But most of my red stone projection powder that I've made from these has been exhausted in the experiments with transmutation of lead into gold. Now, there's more than one version of the red stone that I've prepared, and I've read many books on the different qualities of red projection powder and stones, and how they can be, how the stone's properties can be manipulated to conform to certain physical and material traits and characteristics that it can retain, depending on certain specialized conditions of temperature and atmospheric conditions, like humidity and dryness versus cold and damp or hot and dry climates, which may affect the outcome of the powder itself. But in its most raw state, it is it bears the resemblance of a dark red salt. It almost has the consistency of something similar to, imagine if you mixed brown sugar with salt, just a dash of salt. That's kind of what it feels like in between your fingers when you first make the red stone in its most base, least dense form. But if it is dried out slowly and thoroughly, it will lump itself together like clay and form like a sedimentary rock that can be melted down once it's exposed to extreme temperatures in a furnace or underneath the flame of a really hot blowtorch that will melt it down into a glassy like red jewel like the one I just showed you. I have a second red stone here. I know the lighting in here is terrible. It's awful quality. This red stone, it's a larger one. It's very lumpy, and it's not the best of my stones, to be honest, but it's the one I'll be using. The only issue I have with this stone, though, is that some of it was melted down and pulled out of a batch of lead that I was already working upon. So this came from stone powder that was thrown into lead previously that had melted, and instead of sinking into the lead had ran away from it into the sides of my, or the corners of my cast iron skillet, and that's the thing. The metal will tend to scurry away from the stone and refuse to interact with it if it has the means to do so. It's almost like it is repelled by it magnetically whenever the two are brought together, and both in a very hot and bubbling molten state. They try to avoid interacting and chemically reacting in any way, shape, or form. But if they are both confined to a very small space, which here shortly I'll be using this small steel sort of makeshift crucible I've made here. So this thing came from a CO2 cartridge, but it's a perfect container to hold a small piece of lead in a round bottom tube where the lead doesn't have anywhere to run away from the red powder. It doesn't have anywhere to go to escape having to physically interact with it. Now most alchemists that wrote about this art and who were who were a part of ancient secret orders like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and orders like the Rosicrucian Order, or the Order of the Rose and Cross. These societies were groups of philosophers and men who were taught this art and sworn oaths of secrecy not to teach anyone within their lifetimes other than one person, and that they were allowed to choose before they passed away. But they weren't allowed to even teach their own sons. But anyways, so I have a piece of lead here. This lead is actually part of a sinking lure. I don't know if you guys can see it very well. That's I'll show you what this is. Actually one of those it's one of those things you put on your fishing line so that it'll weigh your bait down. Yeah, I just dropped it. Where did it land? It just landed down here. I'll move shit around. Now it bounced over here. Okay. So this lead, like you pinch this with pliers and it opens up like that so that you can squeeze the lead around your fishing line. For those of you that don't fish, I've never seen these before, but this is what I'm going to attempt to transmute into gold, and I'm hoping to convert at least 60% of its mass into gold. Now, to do this, even though most alchemists who wrote about this art, they advised casting your stone powder into the molten metal after coating it in a layer of beeswax. In other words, you have to melt beeswax around the powder to protect it from the harsh fumes that will rise out of the surface of the base metal. I've done this before. I've worked with using the beeswax, and I don't really know for sure if it really makes much difference or not. I won't be using the beeswax this time because I don't like the burning of the wax, and I don't have ventilation inside here, so it would not be healthy to breathe in, the fumes of, smoldering hot wax. And instead of casting my stone into the metal so that it lands upon the top of it and has no choice but to has no way to interact with the metal other than to sink below its surface. Instead of doing that, I'm going to put the stone that I prepared. Where did I put it? One moment. Oh, it's over here. I'm going to put this stone into our little crucible thing. So here's our red Philosopher stone, and this is my little crucible thing. I'm going to hold the side of this with pliers. I'm going to put the stone down in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this spoon to crush the stone and make powder, redstone powder, in the bottom of this thing that I'm using like a crucible. And then I'm going to use this blowtorch to heat the crucible until it's glowing red hot for a while. And I may do this for probably at least 10-15 minutes before I'll do it for at least. I'll try to see if we can get a change within just a few minutes. Hopefully I'll be able to upload some kind of visible transmutation results to my TikTok feed once this is finished. Hopefully I can upload that amount of footage, but I don't know how much TikTok will allow me to upload it at once. Okay, so it's pretty good and pulverized in there, I guess. Well, I think it's good enough. Alright, so now that I've got that pulverized in my crucible, we are going to hold it firmly with the pliers. Guys, please do not attempt this at home, especially if you have never had any experience in handling molten hot metals and blow torches and things like that, and don't try to copy the things that I do. I have practiced alchemy for about 21 years now, and it's always hazardous, and it can be dangerous at times, but you should never practice these things without proper safety equipment and whatnot. Unless you're just crazy like me and you can't afford to have all the necessary equipment at any given moment. I run out of gloves and tear up a lot of goggles and all kinds of things. I can't even find my goggles here lately. You should never handle metals like lead, especially, base metals, heavy metals, when you have cuts on your hands and stuff, it's always smart to wear gloves, but I don't really worry about poisoning myself or anything like that. If there's any truth to the Philosopher's Stone and its medicinal properties, at least, then I feel like any kind of poisoning or disease should be curable. The reason I say that is because alchemic texts that I've read before, Alright, so I'm gonna like shake this sucker around while it's heating up in there and force this metal to interact with the red powder. So I've already thrown the little fishing lure metal in there. For those of you that weren't paying attention earlier, if you go back and watch the footage closely, you'll see that I picked up the little fishing lure piece of lead from right here, and I threw it in there over top of the red stone that was pulverized. So now I'm forcing them to mingle with each other at the bottom of this thing. Because I'll tell you this, if I didn't force these two substances to interact with each other in close proximity, they would avoid each other like the plague. It would be virtually impossible to get them to mingle. But what you want is for the red stone, you want the sediment of the stone to penetrate through the metal. You want it to like pass through it and interact with its atoms from inside. But heavy metals like lead is hard to transmute compared to, say, mercury, but you should never try to transmute mercury indoors, and never try to transmute mercury without gloves, masks. You need ventilation masks. You need to be outdoors. You don't need to be hovering over it and breathing it in without a safety mask, and you don't need to touch it without gloves. But mercury is the simplest, the most quick and easy of all the metals that will turn into gold, because it is the closest to having the exact weight as gold, and mercury has the lowest melting point, so it requires less energy to get it to absorb the stone and react with it. You can transmute mercury into gold using a candle flame. If you place a wax burner, you put a bead of mercury into a wax burner and use a candle underneath the ceramic wax burner. You can get mercury to turn to gold with just the temperature of a candle flame. But do not try that, guys. Do not try that. I've done that before. It was very deadly, and but I was doing it in a remote location outdoors, and I was handling that mercury very safely. It did result in some of the cleanest, most beautiful gold that I've ever managed to produce. A bead of mercury that I was stirring around with the red powder. As it mingled with the red powder at the tip of my iron rod, the bead of liquid mercury, in the blink of an eye, it solidified into a solid chunk, and I let it cool down, and then I sliced it in half with a razor blade, and it was like the most pure 24 karat gold piece of metal I had ever laid eyes on. I had a friend there that was just kind of checking in on my progress throughout the day, and I brought the sample over to him to have him take a look at it, and he said basically the same thing. He said, "No, that, Cody, looks like fucking some real fucking gold. Like, that looks like high quality shit, Cody." But for those of you that are experienced alchemists or are, practicing alchemical arts and who want to explore the transmutation of metal, specifically that kind of alchemy, because alchemy is a broad topic. The word itself doesn't necessarily mean turning metal into gold. It covers a very broad, wide range of different types of material, physical changes in matter that the practitioner causes by bringing together forces and substances in different conditions to his liking, so that he can induce cause and effect changes in matter, to create medicines, to create alloys, to create different types of crystals and healing ointments. And basically, the work of transmutation doesn't necessarily mean to make one periodic table element convert into another, but to change thoroughly is what the word transmute really means. So if you take just water, for instance, and separate the hydrogen from the oxygen with a stream of steady current flowing through the water, passing voltage to the water, and you separate the water into, hydrogen gas, you've converted water into air and produced two different substances, two different gases out of one material compound. In a way, you are ultimately you are performing transmutation in that way, because you have thoroughly changed that water into something else with completely different physical properties. Now, I don't know how long I should actually continue melting this, but I think I'm going to try and wrap this up soon. Been heating it for a while, and it's been forced to interact in there pretty long, but I kind of want to use the steel rod to stir it just a bit, dash it around, make sure it all moves to one side, because I tell you one thing, this stuff, once it has mingled with the red powder, it will, and once it has undergone a physical change, it tends to conform itself in weird ways. It doesn't like to conglomerate together in one solid mass sometimes very easily. Let's try and heat it from inside too. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and pour out as much of the metal as I can. Damn it. Come on. Try and pour it out onto this surface and get it in one piece so that we can have a look at it. It's not wanting to run out. It's not wanting to pour. think I might have used too much redstone powder and might have actually produced what is called the multiplication process. For those of you who are not familiar with alchemical terminology and the science of the stone, one of the weirdest phenomena that occurs when dealing with the projection powder and metallic transmutation is that if you project too much red stone into the metal, instead of resulting in gold, it will produce more red stone in larger quantity that can then be cast into more base metal to produce gold and so on. But I probably should have weighed out a precise measurement first of my stone's weight versus the weight of the lead I was using, because the stone is supposed to be able to transmute 10 times its weight of lead into gold, but if you exceed that amount by a certain degree, which I'm not positive what the limit is, you'll end up, instead of making gold, you'll make more stone. In other words, the base metal will transmute into gold that will then get absorbed into the stone and become more stone, because the stone itself, in the weirdest way, it is not a stone, though it has stone-like qualities. Its species, according to some alchemists, and chemically its species is gold, but it's not like common gold. Quite get it out. Let's see if I can just tap it with this hammer and get it to. Some of it has broken or solidified into chunks of stone-like stuff. I think I did end up producing the multiplication instead of gold. I've witnessed this before. I yielded about an ounce of red stone out of maybe like 5 grams of redstone that I cast into lead. To produce the redstone, it takes almost at least roughly a year of labor. The fastest I've ever made a redstone was maybe somewhere around 9 months, I think. But it's no easy process, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of work and patience. Most of it is just a waiting game. But it also takes a lot of temperature regulating, a lot of distillation. It's not a simple task that you'll get in a week's time. I've read alchemical texts that talk about reducing the time down to like 5 days, but it's hard to make sense of those fucking texts because they're like 3,000 years old and they're written in a coded form that's really hard to interpret. So I poured some of this stuff out onto that metal tray below. I'm going to heat up what's still in here, see if I can get it nice and molten. Pour some of it out. Losing a grip here. Make sure I got this. Be careful. Trying to shake it around and get it to move down in there because it doesn't want to. There we go, got it loose. Wow. Let's see if I can pick it up. It's hot as fuck, I'm sure, but. Alright. There we go. Oh, I see it. Water's hot. Okay. I think I've emptied it pretty well, but I'm going to go ahead and blast what I dumped out here directly with the flames. I feel like that wouldn't hurt. I'm going to take my hammer, try to flatten it out a bit. Let me put this down and move this over, because I almost fucked up. Alright, let's let that cool off and let's take a look. See what we've got. While that cools down, I will find my tweezers so that we can pick up a piece of it. Where'd it go? The tweezers I had. Did I bring them over here or did I leave them over there? Oh, it's always a conundrum. There they go. Okay. Doesn't usually take this metal to cool down. Usually cools off pretty quickly. A lot of the stone is still intact, I think. But a lot of it has been exhausted and converted into something else. think we're going to need to use these pliers to get this to... Ow! Shit! I forgot that was hot. I gotta peel this back. Just enough. Sorry, so hot. There we are. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna try flattening it out on this here iron thing, this dumbbell. Come here. I think I should melt it down. Melt it down one more time and drop it. And drop it onto. Let's see. We got a brick back here. I got another brick. I could just use this solid piece of steel right here. I need to sit level as I can. I guess that'll have to work. Alright. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it with the tweezers and drop it. Drop the molten bead onto that steel, because that steel is cold and it should make it cool rapidly into a solid. And I'm going to just repeat melting it there just a bit into one little chunk. I like to melt it and remelt it over and over again. I feel like the more heat that it's exposed to for prolonged periods, the more susceptible each atom is to undergoing physical changes under their stress. Now I'm going to flatten it once more while it's under the flame. Let it cool underneath the tip of that hammer there. Nice. It looks beautiful. Okay, I'll put it on the end of the spoon here so you guys can see. The lighting here is so awful. Let me raise my camera a bit. Oh shit. Dropped it on the fucking laptop, guys. Uh-oh. It broke inside one of my keys. Hopefully it did not fucking destroy anything in there. Come here. So that's what we've got. Not bad, I would say.